Michael Joseph Jackson was born in 1958 in Gary, Indiana.
He was the seventh of 9 children. And the Jacksons lived in such a tiny house. LaToya Jackson once said it was a toy house.
Michael and his brothers were stacked in bunk beds in a corner. His sisters lived in the living room, sleeping on the couch.
There wasn't a lot of money in the house at first, but Catherine and Joe always exposed their kids to music, and that's probably partially why, he became what he was.
So the Jacksons were poor, but there was always music in the house, and everybody was singing all the time and dancing and listening to music.
But Michael Jackson, he was the star of it all. His mother tells me that she knew that he was musical when he started dancing to the swishing of the washing machine.
Recognizing their raw talent, Michael's father, Joe Jackson, molded his sons into a pop group.
We called them the Jackson 5, and he started taking them out to perform. But he wasn't taking them to churches or senior homes.
He would book them in strip clubs, and there would be gambling, there would be alcohol. It wasn't really a place for small children, but, for Joe, a gig was a gig.
The Jackson 5 were bringing the house down and the money in.
But the price that Michael paid was that his father demanded perfection.
I saw that misstep, Jackie, on the third.
Yeah, he used the belt.
Michael, what are you looking at?
So there was this harsh discipline.
Michael said that he would take a belt or a switch and kind of beat him if he did something wrong in a rehearsal.
I think that Michael's relationship with his dad, Joe, really affected him his entire life and manifested into a lot of issues as he grew up.
As the boys performed under the ever-watchful eye of Joe, news of their rare talent spread.
So word got back to Berry Gordy, the guy who founded and ran Motown. So they made a tape, and it blew him away.
Michael and his brothers signed to Motown in 1969, and the family moved to Los Angeles in search of fame and fortune. They didn't have to wait long. In 1970, they released their debut album, and it went to #1, as did 2 of its singles, I Want You Back and I'll Be There.
So the Jackson 5 are exploding. Michael is the star of the Jackson 5. He was little and he was cute, and he had this ridiculous voice for a child, and America just fell absolutely in love with him.
When he would sing a song, it was like an old person was singing it because he didn't write the words, but it was like he understood those words, and it would blow people away.
Money followed the musical success, and the family upgraded their home, moving into a 2-acre estate in Encino, California. But that was just the beginning. Michael's talent soon outshone his siblings, and in 1972, he struck out on a solo career.
He was growing up, but still very young. And there he is on stage at the Academy Awards singing this incredible song without his brothers. And you start to see Michael Jackson standing on his own, away from the Jackson 5.
After his debut album, he got his first #1 hit with Ben.
I think Michael Jackson was really driven at a young age. He wanted to have his own career, loved his brothers, but he just had this drive inside of him that was going to make him a star.
In 1979, 21-year-old Michael stepped out from under his father's shadow to take charge of his career and his now considerable earnings. He released the album Off the Wall the same year, the first album to generate 4 top 10 singles, including Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You. It also kickstarted Michael's phenomenal talent as a one-man money-making machine, earning him $4 million.
And this was the beginning of when we could see what an amazing job that Michael Jackson could do with things that we had never seen before. Dance moves we'd never seen, vocals we'd never heard. And this is when he starts working with Quincy Jones, which was the beginning of shooting him into superstardom.
Off the Wall would bring him a Grammy Award in 1980. Most artists would have been overjoyed, but not Michael.
This is a story LaToya told me. He sat there and he cried. He
He says, next award show, I'm gonna win them all.
We understand.
And he wrote on all the mirrors in the house that my next album would be the biggest album in the world. I will sell 100 million copies.
He wanted to be the biggest star ever. And he wanted to be rich. And he wanted to be very, very important.
Michael went back to work more determined than ever.
And on the next album, he locked himself in the studio with Quincy Jones. And do you know they recorded Thriller in 30 days? And that album became the biggest album of all times ever.
The album would also change Michael's life forever.
Thriller was an absolutely massive phenomenon on the global scale, and it went on to sell 65 million copies.
The record industry, I think, was kind of blown away by the success of Thriller.
Thriller was a game changer. It made $125 million for Michael. I mean, this is a staggering amount of money. Nobody had ever made this before on an album. It was a huge thing, and it changed his life drastically.
Incredibly, 7 out of the album's 9 tracks went into the top 10, including Billie Jean and Beat It. It also won him 8 Grammys, but the success began to change the way he thought about money.
I think Michael thought the money was never ending. After the success of Thriller, he thought the world was his forever. He thought that every album was going to sell as well as Thriller. He thought that every tour was going to be bigger. I don't think he even thought about money ever. He just wanted the biggest and the best.
Michael's yearly earnings rocketed from $6 million to $43 million, so he could afford a few extravagant gestures.
Michael's probably one of the most generous people I've ever knew. Everybody says his family mooches him for money. I'm friends with every single member of that family. Well, I don't know if anybody ever asked him Michael for money, but Michael was generous.
Close your eyes, Mama. Give me a hand. Close your eyes. Alright, you guys, tell me what you said.
I think he felt an obligation to take care of them all of their lives, and that's exactly what he did. He could never say no to his mother. If his mother asked for something, he gave it to her. And a lot of times she would ask for things for his brothers or his sister.
I want you to open your eyes.
He bought a lot of cars and paid a lot of rent and bills and bought gifts for a lot of his family.
Not all of Michael's purchases were so frivolous.
Michael had so much money that his attorney, John Bregman, came to him and said, look, let's buy ATV Music, which had the publishing rights to the Beatles catalog.
It's really some of the most iconic, popular music in America and world history. And he owns the catalog. He gets it for less than $50 million. Paul McCartney wasn't happy about that.
Michael actually outbid him on the Beatles catalog, so they stopped talking, destroyed the relationship.
The eye-watering outlay actually proved to be a sound investment.
And at first, everyone thought he was crazy. But at a certain point in his life, Michael's making $75 million every year off of that music catalog.
Later, that would be his saving grace.
Aside from music, Michael was also making a fortune in celebrity endorsements. He signed with Pepsi in 1983 for $5 million, but the deal would prove fateful.
So in 1984, Michael Jackson does a Pepsi commercial.
And it was going to be this big, spectacular commercial.
During filming, a horrific accident would drastically change Michael's life, and